All right, everybody. Today I wanted to go into how you can attach an object to a rig. So I brought into a scene, this is the Ultimate Boney rig. It's a really great body mechanics rig that you can get online. Highly recommended. It's fun to play around with and get simple animations when you don't have, facial controls to worry about. But what I wanted to show is how a character like this could hold something. Maybe they're picking something up, maybe they wield a sword that you've modeled. Anything like that is what we're going to try to do today. So first thing that we need is an object for this character to actually pick up. And before I continue, just so you're aware, I'm going to be using the Parent Master plugin for this particular animation. And that can be found online. It's a free plugin. It's awesome. I'll show you a little bit how to use it, but there are definitely great tutorials out there for how you can set this up in the first place. On YouTube, I recommend Alexander Williams. He's got a really good Parent Master setup video to watch. If you go look at that one, he'll show you how you can put it into the script editor, where you'll get it from online, and show you basically how it works using the default scene that was provided by Parent Master. It's kind of like a machine that can push boxes around and stuff. But specifically, I wanted to show how to attach an object to a rig. There's a couple more steps in it, and I just wanted to make sure my students were able to do this. So I've got my character here. I'm going to create a kind of like a soda can maybe. So first I need to model that up. I'm just going to use my shortcut for a cylinder. And we're going to scale this down. I'm going to be probably off on the scale here because I'm just kind of guessing. I've already got my character, they're handed to a grip position here, but I have not measured exactly what that needs to be. To make my life easier, I'm going to press Control 1 on my keyboard. This hides everything else, but lets me just focus on this. So let's assume this is the size I'm going for. First thing I need to do is kind of reset this object so it doesn't have a history on it. You'll see in my channel box I've got some scale changes that I've recently made, and we just want to reset those so that it's kind of a clean object to work with. So what I can do is go to Edit, Delete by Type, History, and then Modify, and down to Freeze Transformations. What this will do is you'll see kind of reset my scale, so everything's 1, 1, 1 right now. And that's where I want to begin. Let's go ahead and label this. I'm going to call this Soda Can. Okay, and we could just attach this as it is to our rig, but generally speaking, it's not a good idea to animate on actual geometry. So just like the rig, we want to create controls that we can use to attach and animate this particular object. So to do that, I'm going to use some NURBS curves. So if I go to my shortcuts here, or I can go to Create, Curve Tools, and you can create some stuff there, or NURBS Primitives, and I've got some options here. So I'm just going to create a circle, scale that down a bit. I don't need this to be super huge. Okay, I'm going to rename this one. Let's call this one Soda Can Control. Just so you're aware, you may have very specific naming conventions based on the company that you work with, so it's always a good habit to kind of follow some good conventions that you stick with and you practice with, and then when you do end up working in industry, follow whatever they tell you to do, of course. I'm going to create a second one. This one I'm going to just make even smaller here, and we're going to call this one Soda Can underscore sub control. You don't actually need two controls to do this. I'm going to show you why I have a sub control and a main control. The main control is going to be the control I attach to the rig, but the sub will allow you to still animate the actual soda can if you need to. Whereas this one will just kind of be the attachment point. But if you know it's just going to be attached and not going to do much moving beyond where it is attached, one is fine. So I'm going to do the same thing, Edit, Delete by Type, History, Modify, Freeze Transformations. There are some shortcuts in your poly modeling for that. You've got your history here and your freeze transformations. So we'll just try that. Okay, looks like I've got everything reset. So this next part, I'm going to do this in my outliner. So if you don't have that open, you can go to Windows, Outliner to get that open. Probably should have had it open already if you were going to label some of these. But I'm essentially going to establish a hierarchy. I want to make sure that this one is what we call the parent, where it's kind of selecting everything else, these child objects, because that's going to be the main control. So to do this, I'm going to drag the child into the parent control using my middle mouse button. So if I go over to this sub control and I select with my middle mouse scroll wheel as a button and then click and drag it up into my main control, you'll see if I drop this down, this now is inside the main control. And then I can take the soda can and I'm going to middle mouse drag that one into the sub control. Okay, so I've kind of got a 3 deep hierarchy here. And you'll see if I select my first one, everything selects. I can select the second one and only the can selects. So if I were to select this, now I can move this object around and it's going to control it. And this is what is so nice. I'm controlling the can, the geometry, but I'm not actually selecting the geometry. I'm not going to put any keyframes on the geometry itself. So I'm going to press Control 1 again to bring back my main character. With my main control, I'm going to move this up into a better position here. And this may not be super perfectly accurate. I'm kind of guesswork here. Okay, somewhere right about there. Sure. Maybe a little bit more forward. We'll call that good. The hand is not going to perfectly match this, but we'll do what we can. Okay, so I've got my object set, and I'm ready to actually attach this and do some animating. Okay, I have an animation tab where I like to add in my plugins. So I've got a couple plugins here that I like using, and my Parent Master is one of them. When I select this, we get this to open up. Okay, this is the plugin itself. This button is going to attach, and this button is going to detach objects from each other. So first, I'm going to kind of figure out what my animation is. This is going to be super simple. I'm just going to be moving the arm and pretty much nothing else. So on frame 1, let's just hit S to set that keyframe. And on frame 12, I'm going to rotate this to the can. Okay, you know, that's not perfect, but it's going to work. And this is going to be the point where we decide to attach this entire object to the hand so that when he pulls this hand away, it's going to lift the can with it. So what I'm going to do is actually shift select both of these controls and set a keyframe on 1 and set a keyframe on 12. Then if I only select, let's click away from everything so we can see this. If I only select this outer control, I'm going to shift select one of the controls of the rig to attach it to. So this is where we have to decide what is going to be most convenient. I've decided that the wrist will be pretty good because moving the wrist up or down is going to move the whole hand, which the can is now in. So I'm going to shift select the wrist. So I've selected the parent control here, the main control, and then shift selected the wrist control. And on frame 12, I'm going to attach this. So over here, I've clicked this attach button. Okay, we don't see much of a change right now. So let's just go to frame 24. Select my arm, my shoulder control up here, and move this away. So now you'll see that this is just going to follow whatever the wrist is doing. Okay, and because the wrist is a child to our shoulder control up here, I always call this the armpit control because there's sort of a different shoulder up here. But anyway, now we can see the character goes in, scoops it up. No animating on the fingers right now, but you get the idea. Okay, so now no matter how this character moves their arm, this can is going to be attached, which is just lovely. Okay, Now, having this middle control, this secondary sub-control, I just wanted to show you. What I'm going to do is just select this and also set a keyframe on 24. I just like having my keys kind of set everywhere. So if I were to go to like 18, for example, I've got keyframe set here, 7 on 24, and on 18. If I decided, for whatever reason, that the can needed to shift, maybe it was going to, you know, rotate in the character's hand or something, you'll see that I can still let that rotate even while the main control is still attached to the wrist and is moving with the wrist. Okay, and this is really useful. You know, if you're swinging a sword around, the sword might shift around in a character's grip. Sometimes maybe you're attaching a different type of object. Maybe it's like a backpack. So you create an object that's a backpack or a bag or something like that, they're a quiver of arrows, something like that. You're attaching to some of the, you know, maybe to the chest control, so it kind of follows where that's moving. And if you need that to bounce as the character's walking or running or any kind of movement that's going to cause it to shift, having that secondary sub-control allows you that extra layer of movement, which is really helpful. Okay, so now let's just suppose the character is going to let go of this. If I extend my animation out. Okay, I'm going to go to maybe 32. Set a keyframe on things that I want to change. Okay, I'm just going to say it stays in this position for a minute, and then on frame 40 we disconnect, just to give it a little bit of time here. Okay, so okay, looks like I lost my audio from that point forward. So basically what I'm doing here is disconnecting the can from the hand. So by selecting our main control, I was able to disconnect it in our Parent Master plugin and get that to disconnect properly. This obviously is useful. If a character is going to drop something, we could then animate this dropping, you know, using that main control and kind of go from there. So we've got our connections, our connect and our disconnect over here. I've been setting my keyframes as I go. I just want to show you my animation setup here. I've got a window where I usually keep my camera view and then my actual view where I animate things and can spin around everywhere, and then I've got my graph editor down below. And graph editor, if you click this button in your parent animation with your control selected, of course, you're going to be able to see where these are actually happening, where these connections and these disconnections are happening. And this is a good way to edit things if you need to. Your timing might be off. We've got green tick marks here representing where those frames are happening, so we can move these frames around. It's on stepped curves, so you basically are seeing exactly where that change is happening, and then we can move those around if that is going to be beneficial to us. So sorry about losing some of my initial audio. I don't know where that cut out to, but basically I just was kind of finishing this overview, showing how we can adjust any of these keyframes for timing's sake to connect this where we need to. But essentially that is where we left off. This is the Parent Master plugin. It's really great. We can connect objects and disconnect objects easily to our rigs and to our characters. And that is all I've got for you. So thanks.